Hey, everybody, this is Mike Petralia, Trags, along with Richard Skinner of Local 12 Sports here in Cincinnati. And this is the Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals postgame pod. It is the inaugural edition and a losing edition. We, Skinny, saw really an upsetting game for a lot of Bengals fans down at Paycor Stadium on Sunday afternoon. A 16-10 fall flat on your face loss to Gerard Mayo in his first game as NFL coach and the New England Patriots. Where do you start in terms of the blame pie in this one?
There's a lot of places to place the blame pie, I think. I mean, I'm not sure I'm here with this, Mike, but it is fair because it's a recurring theme of, does Zach Taylor have to do something different at training camp, right? I don't think, because there's been extenuating circumstances. The first 2 years, the roster was terrible. Then Joe Burrow's coming off knee surgery. Then he's got the appendectomy, and then he's got the calf. This year, though, you had a full Joe Burrow camp, except you had a full Joe Burrow camp with no Jamar Chase in camp, so that changed things a little bit. So there's an extenuating circumstance there. I didn't think Joe looked very good. He didn't push it down the field very much.
Nope.
Jamar didn't look great, and I wasn't expecting him to come out there and ball out. He still led him in receptions and receiving yards, and for all intents and purposes, if you extrapolated his numbers, he'd have 100 catches for over 1,000 yards this year based on what he did today. And I think the other thing that's a huge issue, because it was an issue last year big time, the tackling was horrible. And so do I think some of this stuff is fixable and doable, and the more people are together, things work better? I do, and there's no T. Higgins today. But, Mike, I'm not alarmed, because I've watched this play out the last few years, and they have found ways to get back either in the playoffs or to the Super Bowl, or in the playoff race like they did last year despite the Joe Burrow injury. So I guess I would have faith that they'll figure it out. But this was supposed to be a season in which you had Joe Burrow for a camp. You're going to have everything go right. They gave you a schedule in September that's beneficial to a fast start. And voila, you threw up on yourself today.
Look, it's week one, and we know the cliches about week one in the NFL. It's unpredictable, and sometimes favorites do lose. Now, mind you, this is the biggest upset win for the Patriots on opening day in 50 years, for whatever that's worth. To me, my concern as a Bengal fan, if I'm watching that game here on Sunday at Paycor Stadium, they looked unprepared. You knew what the Patriots were going to do. They were going to come out, punch you in the mouth. You were going to have to play in a rock fight. Would you punch back? For 3 drives to open that game, 3 and out by the offense. We can say all we want about, and there will be this topic and this theme will be beaten like a dead horse over the next couple of days. What do the Bengals need to do over the course of summer and training camp to better prepare for the first game of the year or the first couple of games of the year? I think it's more fundamental than that. What does Zach Taylor and the coaching staff need to do to better prepare for a single game? To me, the game plan was just not there.
Yeah, and I thought you'd lean into running the ball a little bit more. I think you would establish the run and get Joe Burrow under center and do some play action stuff a little bit more. But I also wonder, and there's 2 things involved here, and this is where it goes back to this whole Burrow wrist, Chase not having camp. They didn't get a chance to do the things in camp I think they truly wanted to do, to see what Jamar Chase looked like out of the slot in motion. All of those things, who was going to best fit around him receiver-wise. And then for a chunk of the first half, it looked like Joe Burrow was playing offense in a phone booth. Quick drop out of his hand, quick drop out of his hand. Then when he had to drop back on 3rd and 7s and 3rd and 8s, couldn't protect. Now, that obviously the protection got way better in the second half, and he took a shot kind of down the middle of Jamar Chase, although Jamar rolled him under the bus and said that he slowed him down on the route, and he thought he could have scored a touchdown if he hadn't gotten slowed down on a route. So I think those are concerns, because is the wrist really going to get better? Was this just a one-off? And it feels like they're just – and listen, I know we're not going to get an answer, Mike, of if Joe goes, I'm 75%, this thing's bugging the crap out of me, and Zach Taylor's not going to give you the, hey, we had to change the game plan because Joe's wrist isn't right. But that's it feels like last year at Tennessee, where they played offense in a cage because Joe Burrow couldn't move, and it wasn't Joe's fault. And it really wasn't the coaching staff's fault because they were trying to game plan around it. But, I don't know if you noticed this today, Mike. And again, I could be reading way too much into this. There were a couple times Jake Browning was just throwing on the sidelines
I
in
did.
between series. And I'm like, that feels odd. It's maybe not. He just wants to throw the ball a little bit, but were they thinking of making a move? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I did notice that as well, but I saw Joe Burrow throwing, and I'm like, that's Browning throwing the ball back. I did notice that, but I didn't give it a second thought. I actually thought Burrow there were some touch throws he made that I thought were pretty good. I thought he rolled out of the pocket. He found Andre Yosivas for that first down with 10:27 to go in the second quarter. It's ridiculous. I mean, look, that we're not going to see that kind of offense, I don't think, very much this year. But I think it frustrates Bengals fans that you have a quarterback who's getting paid $55 million a year. And frankly, you're paying him that kind of money and $219 million guaranteed to go out and win games like this, where you have to play quarterback in a phone booth sometimes. Figure it out. There were, I believe, and I have the game book in front of me, there were to Zach Moss, 4 targets for 2 catches, 17 yards. Chase Brown, 3 targets, 3 catches, and 12 yards. When you know what the Patriots were going to do to you in terms of take away the deep threat, try to bring as much pressure as they could, there was an answer. And those were the running backs. And I just don't think Burrow and Dan Picture, the offensive coordinator, figured them into the game plan enough.
Yeah, Zach Moss did have, I believe, 2 drops. So that's on.
He did have one bad one that I remember open in the flat.
Yeah, one bad one for sure. I was a little surprised that Chase Brown wasn't involved a little more, especially in the pass game. We saw a screen to him at one point, and it went for some decent yardage. We saw a lot of screen game in training camp, and I really thought they were going to lean into the screen game, especially early in the season. There's a part of me after today and watching how the snaps unfolded, and you can certainly shoot me down for this. That's why I love doing conversation with you and a podcast with you. It felt like it was almost like they didn't trust Chase Brown as much as I thought they trusted Chase Brown. Right?
I agree with that. Like, what do you have him on the roster for? It's to explode. It's to have burst plays. We heard so much about Joe Mixon only gets what's blocked. We need more explosive plays out of a running game. Well, you got to give him the ball. He's got to be on the field to do that.
Yeah, Joe Mixon, by the way, got a lot of those blocked today in Houston. He got 150 some odd yards. So maybe that's as much as I didn't disagree with the decision to trade him and move on from him. And I thought he was kind of at the end of his rope. And I hate to do this, give him credit. I mean, he went to a place that apparently found a way to block him up and get him 150 some odd yards. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and we could go down that rabbit hole. I'm not going to do that because
we don't have to.
We've moved on from Joe Mixon. I am of the belief that this roster offensively has more than enough weaponry.
Agreed.
Even with T. Higgins out of the lineup today, they had enough weaponry to beat the New England Patriots. I'm not buying the argument that because T. Higgins wasn't in the lineup, you didn't have enough. I think you did. There was a moment to me that was remarkably deflating to the Bengals, and I failed to ask this question after the game because we were all talking about Chase Brown, the loss, and all of that. Mike Gesicki makes what looked like an incredibly sensational grab, one-handed grab, lands down in the end zone, touchdown in the first quarter. It gets overturned by replay. Very next play, it's the in-cut slant to Tanner Hudson, and it looks like, oh, well, he's going to make up for it. And that's exactly what I was thinking about writing down on my laptop. And as soon as he gets to the 2-yard line, he switches the ball. It's Kyle Duggar coming over, the strong safety for the Patriots, punching the ball out, much in the same way that Von Bell did to Ramondre Stevenson on Christmas Eve in 2022, punches the ball out. Marcus Jones recovers. I don't fully think the Bengals recovered from that.
No, I mean, because it looked like that was the series that was going to get you back in it, get you back in rhythm. Everybody feeling good. The score changes. You're okay. Everything's gonna be right with the world. And unfortunately it didn't. Gesicki just barely couldn't hold on as he came to the ground. It was the right overturn. I mean, it showed it, but it was almost a spectacular catch. And then Tanner Hudson is literally one of the most reliable people. If you wrote down the word reliable and listed 5 Bengals, he'd be one of the 5 most reliable. Yet he had a weird drop today after that, and then had that happen to him. And I feel bad because I really think Tanner is a emerging player as a pass catcher. As everybody talks about, he's a quarterback friendly guy. And on that play, it looked like, wow, what a play. 3rd and 11, you catch Tanner Hudson on a shallow cross, and he's going to sprint into the end zone. And the next thing you know, you're seeing a mad scramble to your point, and New England has a not only averts it, but gets the ball off their goal line as well. So, that was a huge sequence of back-to-back plays.
The other sequence, the Bengals down 10-0 at halftime. They get a 3-and-out from their defense. And I thought one of the best defensive series of the game for the Bengals. Force the punt. Charlie Jones, normally sure-handed, fumbles the ball on the return. Patriots get it at the 24. Bengals defense comes up again big, holds them to just the 35-yard field goal for the Patriots. And you're talking about 13-0, still a ball game. And that moment, though, again, was deflating to the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, the defense actually had 3 straight 3-and-outs to start the second half. The first one you talked about that forced the Charlie Jones punt, then technically wasn't 3-and-out, it was 3 and a field goal on that after they recovered the fumble. Right. And they actually did it on the very next defensive series. But yeah, even though it really didn't change the number of possessions you were behind, you still had a big goose egg on the scoreboard at that point. And now you're chasing 13 points as opposed to 10. And it is different, right or wrong. It's completely different what you're chasing at that point. And I mean, listen, I get Zach Taylor after the game telling us that turnovers decided the game, and to a large degree, I guess in the micro or maybe even the macro, I don't even know. I get those all messed up all the time. Like, I mean, the Tanner Hudson thing cost them 7, right? And the Charlie Jones things cost them 3 the other way. 10-point differential in a 6-point game is a huge differential. And if you want to look at it that way, that probably was the difference in the game, but it felt like it was so much, much more than that. And that's what's a little deflating at the moment.
What should Zach Taylor's message be?
That we've been through this before. And I do an exercise every year, Mike, in a prediction column where I we all predict a record, right? I don't like to go down game by game because so much stuff changes.
Sure.
But I do put games in what would be a likely win column, a likely loss column, and then what I call swing games. And I had 7 likely wins, 3 likely losses, 7 swing games. Today was a likely win. I mean, you're an 8-point favorite at home in the opener against arguably I'm not sure New England still wins 2 or 3 more games. And every year I've done that exercise, some wacky game in the likely win column becomes a loss. See the New York Jets and Mike White a couple of years ago. And then there's some game in the likely loss column that becomes a win. Do I tell you they go beat Kansas City at Kansas City? No, I'd be an idiot to definitively say that. But I think this team has shown great resilience, and maybe it's, maybe these first couple of games of the season, whether we like it or not, fans like it or not, almost really is their preseason ramp up to where they got to work out the kinks. They have to find out what works and what doesn't work. And training camp isn't the place for them to do that. I don't know if it should or shouldn't. We can argue it 1-10 for Zach Taylor in his tenure in his first 2 games, and probably soon to be 1-11 going to Kansas City. Something should be different. But I also get that his goal is get this team to the finish line at the end of the year as healthy as possible. He believes the way he's doing it is right. And last year, the entire offensive line, as you know, Mike, they all started 17 games together.
Yep.
There's something to be said for that. You can say, well, Joe Burrow got hurt. Freaky. Jamar Chase got hurt a couple of years ago. Freaky. Chidobe Awuzie got hurt. Freaky. I don't think it's because of overusage that these guys have gotten hurt. It's just freaky NFL stuff happens. I think his goal literally is, I'm getting us to the finish line. And that's my main goal. The first few weeks be damned. If we can get through them, we get through them. And I think you saw that today. I don't think this team was ready to play today. I don't think this team had a game plan ready to beat New England today.
That's a problem to me.
And that's a problem. And I'm with you. Go ahead. I certainly would enjoy the other point. I'm trying to soft shoe this without soft shoeing it because I
understand the part.
Change.
I understand that you treat this part of the season as your ramp up. And I get that. It's the reality of today's NFL. It does not excuse, however, going into a game looking like you were out of completely I don't want to say disinterested,
No,
but you were flat and it didn't look like you were prepared to take on the opponent. It's one thing to say, okay, we're going to have to ramp up and be ready to play physically, but it looked like they weren't ready for their opponent. Did it
how
not
much?
to you?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So, how much? And I'm going to flip a question on you because I appreciate where you went with that. So, how much do you think the Jamar Chase situation affected today? How much do you think T. Higgins' injury situation affected today? I'm not looking for excuses. How much do you think that whether or not we know Joe Burrow is 100% healthy or not, how much do you think that affected today? Because it just, today, even going in, it just felt wonky from the weekend, especially literally since
Yeah.
talking to Jamar on Friday. My whole thought process was, this has a chance to go really weird. I don't think it will because New England's not very good, but it has a chance to go really weird.
So I will answer that by giving you the impression I got from Jamar Chase post game today. And that is, and I asked him, you seem pissed off, Jamar.
Yes, yes.
And he said, well, yeah, I'm pissed off. We lost. I don't like to lose. But there was a point to my question beyond, I know he hates to lose. He said that many times. It's that something doesn't seem right. It seems like he's uncomfortable with the way things are being run in the organization. That's that vibe he gave off. And of course, he's not going to say that, but the posturing and the demeanor of Jamar at his locker today was unmistakable. And to your point several minutes ago about what he said about Joe, I don't think I'd ever heard him say that in such a critical way about Burrow, thinking that, I had a touchdown if he just lays the ball out to me. Maybe he has. Maybe there have been singular times in the last couple of years where he's done that. But it just struck me as a little bit odd, and he seemed a little bit frustrated and impatient with everything.
Well, and to that point, if you remember in that interview process, it felt like a couple questions later he realized, crap, I just rolled Joe under the bus. I really don't want to do that. And he tried to
Right.
walk it back. Where I think somebody asked him about, what do you mean? He kind of slowed you down, and he said, well, he was trying to protect me. And that wasn't his initial answer. His initial answer to that, to me, I think you read the same thing, is,
Yeah.
dude throws it where I want him to throw it, where he should have thrown. We got 6, man. We didn't get 6. And so I do think they still have a great relationship. I don't want anybody to read that the wrong way, but I
No,
think it's also,
that's Jamar being frustrated. Jamar
yes,
isn't upset with Joe Burrow. He's
no,
like, why can't we run a freaking offense to beat this defense? Why are the Patriots an inferior team? And everybody in that locker room, not to be disrespectful to the Patriots, but Bengals have on paper a more talented roster. Why did we just lose to them in our home opener?
Michael freaking Jordan started at guard today. Bengals fans, do we remember Michael Jordan? Yes, we do. I mean, that's who started at guard in place of City Sal. And City Sal's a nice player. He's not an all-pro or anything, but you talk about, that's where they're at. They beat you with a guy that you cast off, and rightfully so, for goodness sakes. Back to Jamar for just a second. Yeah, I don't think that was, but I think that was to my earlier point of, I just don't know if Joe is 100% right, Mike. I mean, is that a throw that he would have challenged him splitting the safeties and go, I got this, man. My guy's getting open, as opposed to going, no. And it was in theory, it was a good throw. He feathers it over the linebackers in front of the safeties. I think Jamar's point was, no, man, I'm about to split the safeties, bro. Throw it out there. I'm going to go get it and get 6. And I think that's where some of it you go, huh.
If a stronger, really healthier Joe Burrow sees the same thing Jamar sees, and off to the races.
Agreed.
Okay. Your thoughts on what Joe Burrow had to say after the game? I asked him point blank if he had any reason in his estimation as to why the offense came out so flat. And he said, I really don't have an answer for you. I have to look at the tape and get back to you on Wednesday. What is he saying there?
What he said
beyond the obvious,
and he said that how many, 4 or 5 times? I gotta watch the tape.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a guy that's searching for answers for himself. I really do, and maybe that's what he's going to look at in the tape of, man, I used to be able to make that throw. And I'm not sure I can make that throw right now. And I used to be able to make that throw, and I can't make that throw right now. And that to me felt like, to one of the favorite things that we poke fun at, yeah, a little bit of soul searching on his part. I, I I don't think he's comfortable. I don't think he looks comfortable. I gotta give him all the credit in the world for trying to play through everything, but I think it's scary at the moment for him and for this organization where that wrist is, in my opinion. The fact that, and again, I like Joe, and I get that he's a listen. We all deal with athletes that occasionally they treat you bad and you just go. I mean, the fact that he cut that thing off so quickly when somebody's about to ask another question, go, thanks guys, and left. I think it showed that I'm done with this. I don't want to talk about this. I'm frustrated with all this.
Yeah.
And I get it. My fear is, where are we moving forward with him and that wrist?
Yeah, and that is, the 219, $275 million question, right? And
Yep.
the Bengals themselves, forget what we think or the fans think. The Bengals have to feel confident that he is able to play at a certain level, make certain throws. Dan Picture has to know. Zach Taylor has to know. And I think they have to have a heart-to-heart. As far as the rest of the roster is concerned, my point about Zach Taylor is, and it was interesting to hear, certainly Tom Brady, if anybody had a chance to listen to Tom Brady on the Fox broadcast of the Cowboys beat down of the Browns, he talked about 30 to 45 seconds about the discipline Bill Belichick gave him and how accountable he held everybody when they weren't playing well. And not to turn this into that's Belichick, and they played the Patriots here, and Gerard Mayo is picking up where Bill Belichick left off. But the point of the matter is there enough accountability inside that building to correct things and have people have enough players and coaches pissed off and saying, that's not our standard. We've got to take corrective measures.
Yeah, I do. Listen, I wouldn't want to tangle with Von Bell if I was anybody in that
Right.
locker room. I mean, he's one guy I would not tangle with in a heartbeat if I'm a player. And there's others. And Joe Burrow's personality is strong. Jamar's personality is strong, more so Burrow probably than Jamar. That being said, I don't think that's the issue here. I really don't. I think they'll hold each other accountable. I think they've always been great about that. I think that's why this team bounces back. That's why this team has had success. All of those things. I just wonder if we get to a point of, again, Burrow's wrist isn't getting much better and they can't do certain things on offense. And maybe it does. I hope it does for Bengals fans' sakes. You know, what if we're in week 5 and they just lose to the Ravens to go 2-3 and Jamar Chase goes, my calf hurts a little bit. I'm good for now. And
You've seen this before, Skinny.
Sure, I saw with AJ Green. I mean, what if unfortunately T, because I don't think T, I know a lot of people have pointed to T of, is he making a business decision today? I don't think he is, because he needs to play and play well to get paid.
It does him no good. It does just the opposite. Right. He's hurting his value.
Correct.
Going forward with another hammy.
But to your point, another is the key word there. It's another hamstring issue. And you can go back to the end of his college days, and this seems to pile up. And it sucks because, this kid should get paid at some point from somebody. It's not going to be the Bengals from somebody. But if he's not going to put up numbers, he can't play. He's not going to. And I just wonder if all this melding pot of nonsense or, bad things just derails this season completely. Again, I don't want to go over my skis off of one game, because I said I've watched this team lose early in a season, and suddenly, I mean, last year, Mike, last year looked like a daggone disaster, right? And then they rip off all those wins in a row, including one at San Francisco, and it was like, oh, okay, yeah, this team's got it together. And then what ends up happening, unfortunately, Joe Burrow gets hurt again. Jake Browning did fine, but he's not Joe Burrow, and the season went sideways. And so I can't ever sell this team short, but this just, I hate to be an alarmist. I do. This just feels weirdly different in not a good way.
No. And, on my drive back home tonight, I did think of 2022. You had a home loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers in really a brutal fashion.
In a weird fashion.
Then you lose on the last play of the game in Dallas. You're 0-2. And that's obviously a specter that the Bengals face if they don't come out of Arrowhead with a win next week. They did manage to get that season back on track. It ended with 10 straight wins before the loss in Kansas City. To your point, Skinny, This team has shown before under Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow's leadership, they can right the ship. But I just wonder, only because of the uncertainty around Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and the weird vibe that I had after the game in that locker room, there seemed to be a little bit more doubt than there was after a season in which you go to the Super Bowl.
Mike, and you can't discount the fact that the lack of tackling when last year it was bad and it snowballed and it was a recurring theme. And they thought, okay, new season, we're going to get this right. We all know what the issue was. We got a more physical Von Bell back and a Geno Stone. And yeah, it stinks about GJ Reader, but we're going to be okay up front. And I thought honestly, Mike, I thought they fit stuff pretty well for the most part today. There was a bunch of times where you watch Ramondre Stevenson go to a spot and you're like, okay, they got him hemmed in. Next thing you know, it's one guy missing a tackle, and boom, out he goes. And that's the funny part. It's not like, high school football, college football, where those turn into 72-yard runs. It's the -1 that turns into a 5 in this league that is a huge, huge difference, and that happened far too often today. Can they fix it? Sure. They talked about trying to fix it last year and couldn't. So where are we with that right now?
How many sacks did the Bengals have today?
That's the other thing, Mike, I believe, and I don't have my game book in front of me, but I have my memory bank, which is losing.
I will check it against the game book. Go.
Is losing more. I'm going to say that's a big, fat goose.
And you, sir.
No, Dax Hill had one. Dax Hill had one on a weird play. I'm so sorry. Am I right?
I'm trying to look right here for sacks.
It was down.
Number of times that you are correct, sir. It was one sack, and it was by Dax Hill.
In a weird play down, I think right before Joey Sly kicked the field goal that made it 13-0, I believe.
Correct. And that was it. But to your point, I just felt like there were times today the Bengals pressure. They had him, and Jacoby Brissett was making them miss.
Yeah, I mean, is that Trey Hendrickson trying to go for a kill shot? Is that he complained a lot, and you saw it too, about getting held, and he probably was, but bro, shake it off and just go make a play. And then there were times where this was supposed, and this is, I think, the concerning thing a little bit today, or maybe even not a little bit, but it's one game. So you got Sheldon Rankins and pair him with BJ Hill, and your thought process was we're going to be more stout pass rushing up the middle. We know we got on the guys on the edge, whether it's Trey or Sam, and Sam's not a great pass rusher, but Sam's an okay pass rusher. Trey got around that guy a ton of times today, the tackle he was playing against. And yet there were times Jacoby Brissett, where did he step up, Mike? Stepped up right through the middle of the pocket to either create a play, run, dump something off, all those things. That concerns me a little bit. Does a healthy Chris Jenkins help that? I don't know. I would hope so, and maybe he does. But I thought Sheldon Rankins was supposed to help that, and I didn't see it today.
All right, we're going to wrap it up here. Anything else you want to that we haven't covered here in this inaugural Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals post-game pod?
Yeah, Mike, I don't know. Like I said, it just feels different. I came out of the Pittsburgh loss a couple years ago and just went, yeah, if the long snapper doesn't get hurt, they win. Last year in Cleveland, I'm like, yeah, dude's playing with a calf. If the calf gets better, they're going to be fine. It was in the rain. Blah, 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 blue. Today just felt like you had a layup at home. And yeah, you got some issues, but you don't have 1,000 issues. And your quarterback went through a camp. And you're supposed to, it just felt weird. And you know what, though? The great thing about this league, Michael, is you go to Kansas City and somehow win. And I know people right now are going, good luck with that, you idiot. It's the league, man. If you do that, I think after 2 games, if we all sat down and said, what's the realistic record after 2 games? If I said, Mike, what's the real, hang on, let me say it. There it is. Mike, it's my fake gun to your head. What's the realistic record after 2 games? You would say, Skinny, 1-1. And I would say, Mike, yep, 1-1. And guess what you still have a chance to do? Get back to 1-1.
Yeah, they do. And that is where we're at. Look, the frustration is about as high as it could be after an opening season loss, opening day loss of the 2024 season. But that's life in the NFL, as our veteran scribe Richard Skinner just pointed out. Be sure to cover all of Skinny's great work on local12.com. He does a fabulous job covering the Bengals all week long, all season long on local12.com. As for myself, yours truly, you can follow me on the X at Trags, Trags, CLNS Cincy with a Y.com, and the YouTube page. My YouTube page is youtube.com/at Jungle Roar Pod. Until next week from Kansas City, where we'll be at Arrowhead Stadium, for Skinny, I'm Mike Petralia Trags, and this has been the Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals postgame pod.